Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, what we're going to do today is, I guess, kind of like we usually do, and that is strap on our boots, strap on our bags, and head off for a tale set in Ohio. Right, specifically, Ohio State. Like, not, you know, the state, but also the state. The university. Probably should have just said that. This is a story of, well, you know, the writing was on the wall, but your eyes were closed. This is a story about, well, white tees when I can tell. So let's give it a go. Grove City. Frankly, it's in Franklin County, and oh boy, oh geez, there you'll find every type of adventure. Whoa, slow down, Grove City. Home of 42,000 people. The city of Groves lies on the outskirts of Columbus, and if you are the adventurous sort, and I know you are, there you'll find plenty of treks, trails, it's got aqua parks, you got paintballing, you got all the kind of parks you can think of. So long as you're thinking within the limits of parks most cities have. But I hear you're barking, big dog, you know, maybe you're more of a culture vulture. Well, in that case, you're in luck. Museums, there's a couple. Musicals, there be that. Or maybe you're a crafty sort, so, well, why go anywhere else? Unless you already live somewhere else. Okay, point is, it's a bustling city. You know, stuff to do? This bad boy's got it. Okay, but what about what we're talking about when we're talking about Grove City? Crime? Well, crime is relatively low, well under the national average in relation to violent crime, though theft is a little higher. It's a suburb filled with families, so it's the type of crimes you could expect, I guess. If you were to keep driving into Columbus, you'd come to the Ohio State. Don't really need to go into the university a whole lot, it's well known for a good reason. It's good. It's produced Pulitzer Prize winners, politicians, Olympians, Nobel Prize winners, and as equally well known for the high quality of its education is its athletics, and particularly its football. The Buckeyes, consistently one of the most successful college football teams in America, and even that's a bit of an understatement. In 2017, a student at the university was 21-year-old Reagan Tokes. Reagan was born in 1995, native to Kentucky, but growing up in Maumee, Ohio. She was who she appears as in the pictures, just a very vibrant, happy, funny person, full of light. She was devoted to her family, her parents and her sister, but also to her friends, of which she had quite a few. She did have the makings of a varsity athlete, playing tennis and lacrosse, and was proud as punch to be a Buckeye, something she had wanted since she was 8. When she attended Ohio State to study pre-med, later switching it up to psychology after organic chemistry, in her own words, kicked her butt. She, though, would meet someone who was psychologically the complete opposite to her in February 2017. Reagan was successful in college. She was having a grand old time, and in 2017, she was in her senior year, getting ready to graduate come May. The goal after? Moved to Cleveland, where she had a job lined up, and later to open up a practice to help those suffering from addiction and other psychological tolls. While studying, she had a part-time job, a bit of cha-ching on the side. She was working at a little old place called Bodega. A hip, that means cool, fellow kids, gastropub, right in central Columbus, or bar that serves food. That'll work too. This was about a 15-minute walk from the campus. This week, though, at the start of February 2017, it was a tough week for Reagan. She had just broken up with her college sweetheart, and she was pretty heartbroken. It was a mutual breaking up. They both wanted to focus more on their studies, but you know, she wasn't in the best form. But hey, life goes on. Until the 8th of February. That evening, she was heading off for her shift at Bodega. It was freezing. Snow was in the air. The shift went grand. It was a Wednesday midweek, so not terribly busy, and she checked out at 9:45 p.m. She walked out of the restaurant and didn't make it home. She had let her dad know that she would call him as soon as she got home, as soon as she got back to her place in the door. That was supposed to be at about 10 p.m. So when she didn't call, he began to wonder. Calls to her went nowhere, and her dad was trying to call her throughout the night till he tried calling her throughout the whole night until 2 a.m. when her phone finally died. And he was having a real bad feeling about something was off. The next morning, when Reagan's roommate saw that Reagan's room was minus Reagan, well, something was definitely up. Thinking though, maybe she just got up early, went studying, it was around that time when exams are coming. Maybe she went to the library, who knows. But as the day, went on, they began to think, ellipses. It was her friends who went to the bodega to see if they knew anything, as well it was the last place they knew she had been. The manager said it was fine, she left, she finished her shift like normal. But her car, which she used to go to and from work, it wasn't in the car park. So, where'd she go? It was the manager who reported Reagan Tokes missing to the police.
Columbus Police.
So we had a employee leave work last night, and she has not been home. Her phone is off. Nobody can find her. So I wanted to see what I could do about filing a report. It's Reagan Tokes.
By the time Reagan was reported missing, she had already been found. This was in Grove City, in a park about a 20-minute drive south from Bodega. Someone had spotted a body in the park.
Hello, 911. Yeah, I think there's a body out here. I don't know if this is a patron or what. I'm afraid to get close to it. This is really freaking awful. Please hurry, send somebody. Okay, stay right there, sir.
The body was completely naked, sexually assaulted, and had been shot twice in the head. Nothing belonging to the victim was nearby. Clothing or any items other than a necklace and a tattoo. They didn't have a clue who it was until Reagan was reported missing that evening, and the tattoo matched. This was immediately an incredibly tragic incident. Clearly, and not just devastating to her family, but to the university as a whole. Now that the 21-year-old, talented, loved woman was now gone.
A plea for answers.
She by no means deserved any amount of harm, sent her away. So yeah, anybody with information, please come forward because we need to get justice for Reagan.
I'm like, this can't happen here. I haven't slept all night. I'm serious. That's all I've been thinking about. It's all night long.
We also found a man today stopping by the park to place flowers for Tokes. Charles Warfield says it's a small tribute from a stranger to a young life lost.
But the police had to move swiftly on to the who. It wasn't like she had any obvious enemies, she was well liked, as in when you start to say, who could have done this? Don't know. Though maybe there was that one person who may not be on the best terms with her, and that was her, the person she had just broken up with. Was it as mutual as it appeared to be? Now, Reagan's friends would say, not at all. He was a lovely fella, wouldn't hurt a fly. But we've seen that before, as had the police. So, while some officers spoke with him, feel him out, his alibi though would hold up later, it was solid as a rock. Others had to track down where did she go after she left work, and what happened to her car. They found footage of her leaving her place to go to work, and then she was seen on CCTV inside Bodega leaving work when, at the time she was due to. After that, though, she vanished. So what the police did was they entered her license plate into this, license plate database, the system, right? And so police would scan license plates and maybe somewhere had seen it, picked it up, whatever. That produced this much, but then what they did was enter Reagan Tokes' license plate into a separate system that was used for commercial vehicles, like garbage trucks. And that happened to have found it right around the corner from a children's hospital in Columbus. Reagan Tokes' car was found on a residential street just sitting there. The first clue was cigarette burns in the seats of a non-smoking Reagan's car. It also smelled strongly of petrol. Someone probably tried to burn the car. And, well, you can see how successful they were. Also inside the car were cigarette butts and ATM receipts. Someone had been withdrawing in Reagan's name. A gas canister also led the police to a store not a great distance away that had CCTV. And so they got CCTV of whoever bought that gas canister. And also CCTV of Reagan withdrawing money, the money stamped on receipts. But it was at night, after she left work, and it was too dark to see who was in the car with her. Now, little did the police know that the abduction and murder of Reagan Tokes was just the latest in a long string of crimes, violent incidents, going back about 2 weeks, each one getting a little bit worse than the one before it. It was the cigarette butts left behind in Reagan's car that pointed the finger. The DNA came back super quick, because the offender was in the system. As I said, it would lead back to someone whose activities had slowly been getting worse for a couple of weeks. I mean, exacerbating to the point of murder. Every day. But if you go back further than the 2 weeks preceding Reagan Tokes' death, oh geez, you'll find just a lot. Where to begin? His name was Brian Lee Goldsby, and he was 29 years old. He had a shitty childhood growing up in Columbus. He didn't really have a hope. His mother was mentally unstable and an addict, and physical and sexual abuse were constant for him as he grew. At one point he joined a street gang and had maybe a modicum of power, and every single thing that was done unto him, he did unto others. What's called a reactive perpetrator. He would sexually assault both boys and girls as a young teen, and was collecting offenses like they were Pokemon. Criminal damaging, receiving stolen property, theft, trespassing, the list goes on. However, he did go away in 2010 when he robbed a woman at knife point as she was bringing out the bins. And then, 2 weeks later, it got a lot worse. He kidnapped a pregnant woman and her 2-year-old son, sexually assaulted her, forced her to withdraw money from the ATM, and then sexually assaulted her again. Shit. For that, he got 2 sentences of 6 years, and they would run concurrently. He was out in 5.5. So he was out 6 months early of 2 convictions, but the sentences for both of them ran at the same time, so happy days. It's kind of like just doing one, really. And while he was in prison, he was moved around to 5 different prisons during those 5.5 years. Because, do we want to know why he was moved around so much? Because he kept getting into shit the whole time. He had 52 infractions by the end of his time inside, including fighting, disturbing, possession. Just a model prisoner, right? I'm sure, you know, when he was being let out, the corrections officers were only delighted. It's not our problem anymore. He was out in November 2016, 3 months before he would run into Reagan Tokes. Now, so besides all the shit I just mentioned, which is not a red flag, it's a red sail. He also had an ankle monitor, which really should have been tracking him the whole time he was out. The ankle monitor, though, was really just there for decorations. Bit of bling on the leg, you know, to make yourself look sharp. The reason being, it goes back to what I was saying about things getting worse. When they finally decided to, hey, let's check out his ankle monitor, they learned that from the 24th of January 2017 to the 7th of February, he committed about 6 robberies, using knives, a gun, he pistol whipped a woman, he abducted a man and forced him to take out $500, and more. This was all over the news in the area, that there was someone going around just being a real bastard, including this broadcast from the day before Reagan was taken.
This is the third attack in this neighborhood in 2 weeks.
Last night, just before 10 o'clock, a woman who lives in this German village neighborhood on Mohawk and Frankfurt Street was robbed by gunpoint and attacked. Police say the man pistol whipped the woman across the right side of her face and then took off with her purse.
And then, on the 8th of February, he began walking around the area of Bodega. And so, with the DNA hit, SWAT arrested him where he was living, a half mile from where Reagan's car had been abandoned.
Search twice, search him again before you put him in. Yep. Pat you down, search you real quick before you get in there, okay? Try to keep as wide as you can. This car. There you go. Oh. No. We're going to double check for our safety. You're going to get searched a lot, all right? You got on there real quick. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Brian, you're not here by accident, right? You didn't just happen to stumble upon this and you're here. You're here because we have a pretty good amount of evidence on what happened.
Now, he said he had met her that night. He knew they had, DNA evidence, so it's hard to circumvent that. Shit. So he said he'd robbed her. But murdered her, though? Get out of town.
So you got in the car, right? And you went to chase.
Did you drive or she drive?
Well, how much money did you get initially?
I didn't tell nobody, man. And, I don't know how many times I can say that. Different ways. Telling you I didn't trust somebody. I don't know how to tell you that.
Who could have?
I don't know who could have. I'm not the
Who
only
else would have been out there?
I'm not the only one in this city, Grove City.
You're the only one there.
I told you I left. As soon as I made her get out of the car, I made her stop right there. I told her to stop. She said right here. She looked back up like, yeah. I said, don't move for 30 minutes. I got in the car, I turned around, and I left. I didn't shoot nobody, man. I've never shot a gun in my life.
He wouldn't budge, so the police tried another tactic. They tried the old, here's an escape route, old buddy, old pal. We know you were there, but, I'm not saying you did it. Maybe there was someone else involved? What do you think? Now, they had no evidence someone else was involved. They knew it was Brian and Brian alone. But maybe this would open him up. Spoonful for daddy. And it did. Enter TJ. TJ doesn't exist.
I know you didn't pull the trigger, but I know somebody else was in the car. Who was it?
I'm in the passenger seat. He's in the back seat. We looked behind her. We get down to the park. He says, check off all your clothes, get out. He says, walk until I tell you to stop. She walks, she's naked. He gets behind her, but then he goes, pow! She falls. She's laying on the ground. I'm looking on the car, and he bends down and shoots her again. Pow! I don't understand why he killed her. She did everything he asked for, right? And he shot her in the back of the head.
Friends describe her as an amazing, very loving, and happy person. From the church service in Maumee to a graveside service in nearby Perrysburg, Reagan Tokes was then laid to rest. All across Ohio, people have expressed feeling a connection to Reagan Tokes and her family.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, the first case on the docket this morning is State versus Brian Lee Goldsby. Case numbers 17 CRA 3038, 3059, 3074. The defendant was charged by complaint by Detective Forney from the Grove City Police Department with aggravated robbery, kidnapping, and rape.
Brian was charged with aggravated murder, rape, kidnapping, and robbery. He stuck with the someone else did it, he's innocent story. You know, the story the police gave him.
One to count 3 of the indictments, a felony murder specification under...
The county prosecutor filed a motion asking that Brian Goldsby be held without bond. The judge agreed. Goldsby hung his head while pleading not guilty to all charges.
It was a horrific crime. It devastated the community, the city. And when everyone, the family, the friends, the locals learned of what I told you, that he had a long history of doing shit and getting away with it, they stopped being so devastated and instead were very pissed. The fact that he did so much and got a very short prison sentence. And once again, did so much in prison and no one cared. And he got it early. If he hadn't, Reagan wouldn't have died. And then you combine that with the fact that he did so many crimes before Reagan was killed and nobody bothered to check. Well, it seems that when Reagan was getting into her car after work, Brian launched. He forced her into her car holding a handgun. And then he forced her to drive to 2 ATMs to withdraw cash. Both declined. He then raped her and went to another ATM to try again, and he got $60. They then drove to the park. He told her to strip and walk, and while she was walking, he shot her in the back of the head. Then, when she was on the ground, he walked up and shot her again. He then drove to his girlfriend's house. He gave her some gifts. Gifts being Reagan's handbag and her purse. And then he tried to set her car on fire. And he was obviously incredibly successful. The trial began in spring 2018.
Mr. Goldsby, as he continued to lie and blame his fellow TJ, they learned what his explanation was, and he admitted only enough progressively that he learned that they could prove, but didn't, at least then, back off of this mysterious fellow as being the person responsible that had actually forced him, because he knew he had to explain his DNA that was in her anal cavity. He claimed that TJ marked her out in the field and murdered her. So we have his DNA in her body. We have him on surveillance video buying the gas can that's in her trunk. The clothing he was wearing that night on the sleeve has what we call gunshot residue.
You have to presume Mr. Goldsby is innocent unless they prove proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
It was a slam dunk. They had his DNA on the cigarettes, his DNA on her body, the CCTV, and the fact he had confessed to 2 friends that he had done it. He was sentenced to life in prison on the 21st of March, 2018.
Today I would like to apologize to the Tokes family for the crimes I committed against her daughter, friends, and family. When I first got locked up, I lied about everything. Said it was TJ. There is no TJ. TJ is not real. I made TJ up because I was trying to wiggle my way out of the crime that I committed. But the only other thing I have to say is, please have mercy on me.
You get spared because of your background, and yet she forfeited her life. She did nothing wrong except be at work. Life imprisonment without parole, signed by all 12 jurors.
Subsequent appeals, even up to 2021, were dismissed.
It was all smiles and celebration for many of the graduates and their families. The Ohio State University held its spring commencement where nearly 12,000 students felt the joy from receiving their degrees. Today, her family got to see her hard work at Ohio State pay off.
Reagan Tokes to receive the degree Bachelor of Arts.
The Tokes family, while battling their emotions, received Reagan's posthumous degree on her behalf and released this statement soon after, which reads in part, Reagan Tokes wanted to be a Buckeye ever since she was a little girl. Today, her dream became a reality as she was awarded a diploma from the Ohio State University. As her parents and family, we are so proud of her.
This case created a well-deserved shitstorm about the failures that led to Brian being able to do what he did. Reagan's parents sued the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction, saying they were negligent and weren't properly monitoring Brian. That was later settled. The Reagan Tokes Act was also later introduced in 2019. It aimed to address the sentences prisoners got. For example, the fact that Brian could serve his concurrently and get out early even when he had over 50 infractions. Wow, obviously nobody cared. Why not commit a million? And there you have it. At least some, changes were made in the system to try and ensure something like this, doesn't happen again. But it doesn't bring back Reagan. An incredibly smart, hard-working gal taken in an incredibly heinous way. Brian, he was screwed from the start with his upbringing, but it seems like nothing was done on his long slide into being just the worst.
So if someone goes through this kind of treatment you're describing, they will not commit crimes after they do it.
I could never guarantee you. All I'm telling you is there's a great likelihood that had he received proper treatment, and trauma-informed treatment, it's a much better likelihood that he would have had a fighting chance at being very different.
Hopefully it will mean there won't be any future Ryan Goldsbys. But if you could see my to-do list, which is very long, it's like my two cover case lists. There's a lot of them here. These are all the ones I have to get to. Thank you, by the way. They're all suggestions, which are sent in by you guys. That's where I get all my topics from, so thank you. Judging from this, there's no shortage. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to do so, and be here with me. Come on, here, listen. That's about it. Right, I'll round it up. Here, I'll see you as always real soon in the next old video. But until then, please take care of yourselves. Because I love you. Mike out.